With just 10 minutes left on the clock, Argentina looked set to sail into the semifinals. Up 2-0, they were dominating the game. Messi had mesmerized, the defense stood tall, and the Dutch had barely landed a punch. The crowd in Lusail was a sea of white and blue joy. But then came a twist, straight out of a football fairy tale. Wout Weghorst, not even a regular starter, steps onto the pitch in the 78th minute, and suddenly, the mood begins to shift. In the 83rd minute, out of nowhere, he rises like a giant to meet a cross and powers a header into the back of the net. 2-1 game on. Argentina were rattled, but no one could predict what came next. Deep into stoppage time, 100th minute, a free kick just outside the box. Everyone expected a shot, but the Dutch had been planning something else. A rehearsed move, a genius play. The ball is rolled low into the wall. Weghorst spins off his marker, collects it with grace, and calmly slots it into the far corner. Pandemonium. The stadium erupted, benches cleared, Argentina stunned. The Dutch players mobbed Weghorst like he'd scored in a Champions League final. Fans watching around the world lost their minds. Clips of the goal flooded every platform: Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, reactions, breakdowns, memes. It was more than a goal, it was a moment. A comeback no one saw coming, a match that turned into a war, and a night when Wout Weghorst became a World Cup legend. It was supposed to be over. PSG had humiliated Barcelona in the first leg with a 4-0 lead, a margin no team in UEFA Champions League history had ever come back from. The Parisians were brimming with confidence, believing their spot in the quarterfinals was secured. The Camp Nou was filled with anxious faces, but no one believed what would unfold next. And then came La Remontada. In the 50th minute, Luis Suarez's cheeky pass set up Lionel Messi for the opener. The scoreboard read 1-0 and Barcelona was still alive, but 3 goals to go, a mountain to climb. But Barcelona weren't just fighting for a win, they were fighting for something more: history. Then came Neymar's free kick, a beautiful strike in the 50th minute, bending around the wall to make it 3-1 on the night, 4-3 on aggregate. Suddenly, the impossible seemed real. Minutes later, Neymar again, this time with a controversial penalty in the 88th minute. 4-1, 1 goal away, 1 goal away. The stadium was shaking, the fans were screaming. It was no longer just a match, it was a fight for immortality. And then in the 95th minute, with seconds left, Sergi Roberto, a player who had barely been noticed in the early stages, arrived at the perfect moment. He latched onto a perfect ball from Neymar and slotted it past Kevin Trapp. 6-1, Barcelona had done it. 6-5 on aggregate. The impossible comeback was complete. The internet was set on fire. Memes, reactions, and disbelief flooded every corner of the globe. PSG's players stood in shock, unable to comprehend what had just happened. For Barcelona fans, it was a miracle. For PSG, it was the greatest choke in football history. And the world watched as history was rewritten. This wasn't just a comeback, it was a devastating collapse, one of the most mind-boggling moments in football history. Brazil, the hosts, were expected to go all the way. Their fans were dreaming of a 6th World Cup, but no one could have imagined that, in their own backyard, they'd witness the unthinkable. Germany didn't just score, they obliterated Brazil. In the most shocking, relentless fashion, they dismantled one of the most storied footballing nations in history. It started innocently enough. Germany took the lead, but then, like a wave crashing, the floodgates opened. Miroslav Klose, the legend, scored to set the record for most goals in World Cup history, but that wasn't the end of it. In the blink of an eye, just 6 minutes later, Germany scored 4 more. The Brazilian defense was in tatters. 7-0 by the 29th minute. In the space of half an hour, Brazil's World Cup dream turned into a nightmare. The Brazilian fans, who had filled Estadio Mineirão with hope and excitement, were left in utter disbelief. Their hearts sank with each goal, tears flowed, and many simply couldn't comprehend what was unfolding before them. It wasn't just a loss. This was the greatest World Cup humiliation in history. Germany turned Brazil's dream into a tragedy, and it was all captured on live TV. As the final whistle blew and the scoreboard read 7-1, the world sat stunned. The memes, the reactions, and the outrage spread like wildfire. Germany didn't just win, they rewrote history, delivering one of the most iconic performances the World Cup had ever seen. But for Brazil, it was a night they'll never forget, one they wish they could erase. It was the most shocking result in football history. A dream turned to dust, and the football world would never be the same again.